Hey, what's going on? It's Jody here, your Wednesday host for FT and I'm sorry about getting the video up late. I just had to work, crazy busyness, and then I had some personal stuff I had to deal with. So, anyway, coming back at you, I'm going to go ahead and jump into this week's topic, which is complicated language. And so we're going to discuss different words that can be considered derogatory for some people and not for others. And so I'm going to try and stick to like two and go from there. So the first word that comes to mind when I think of kind of derogatory, complicated language is the word tranny. Because some people use the word tranny as something very negative and as an insult, kind of like when people use the word like fag or faggot. And so depending on the context in which it's used, it can be very, very negative. And then there is a group of individuals that use it as a way of taking back the name and using it as a more kind of slang endearment kind of word, such as like when people call like the other person, like their friend, like fag or queer or something like that. And so that word gets really complicated, and especially like out of context, it can be very, very complicated. I know that RuPaul had to change like his show because of the T-word situation, and he made a song about tranny chasers, and to me, I find the song very comical because I see that he made that song in making fun of people that are very exclusively, like, fetishizing over trans individuals, whereas, like, the female I was seeing, she finds the song very offensive, and doesn't find it comical as much as I do. And so I'm thinking it is like looking at it from his perspective on why he wrote that song, and from his perspective of the lens and the time frame that he grew up also is very important to take into consideration when thinking about these terms, because I find it very problematic in some cases, and then in other cases I don't. So it just kind of goes up and down based on everything that is entailed. Now, if I just hear the word randomly and it just catches my ear, I'm probably going to think of it more of as a derogatory usage than something like as, trying to reappropriate the word. So there's one. Another word I can think about is like Ladyboy, where could be used as like referring to trans individuals, could be referring to drag queens and stuff like that, and so that can be very convoluted and very complicated, and so I don't hear that term used a lot, so from where I live, but I can see how it could be very problematic. So if you guys have some thoughts on that term, definitely leave me a comment down below. We'll have a discussion about it. It'd be good to get some other perspectives and thoughts, even on the word tranny as well, and if it's appropriate or not appropriate for anyone to use. I don't know, I just don't like to put a restriction on who can use it and who can't use it, because I feel that if one group uses it as a term of like taking it back and using it as trying to reappropriate it, turn it from a negative to a positive, that it's going to get used by other groups, even though it could be and most likely will be used out of context. But if you don't want people to use that word, I feel that you shouldn't use those words yourself. So that's my thoughts on that. The other word that some people wouldn't probably think that is very complicated or kind of derogatory is like the word passing, and so I think that could be very problematic in the terms of like obviously trans individuals that are trying to embody their identities. And so I grew up using the term passing like throughout my transition, throughout the language that was being used from when I was 19 was passing, and then now that's starting to be considered very derogatory and saying, you're not passing, you're just being who you are, and if you are getting read as the gender that you identify with, then it's not passing because there's no checklist. And I don't think that there's a checklist in a right or wrong way to be a male or a female, but I use the term passing when talking in general to people that don't know a lot about the trans community, because I think it's easier for people to understand where some people would probably be like, what is your freaking problem kind of situation. So, but I think it's a generational thing. I think it's, the language changing over time for anything. And so I think really understanding the perspective of the other person before making a judgment on if it's derogatory or not to you should probably understand it from their point of view as well and how they're saying it. I'm not saying you have to agree with how they're using it, and you can maintain that complication and not use it in your life, but just take a little bit more of another look at it from a different perspective. And I think that a better understanding where the other individual that isn't being derogatory and being complicated, and like you can educate them about how you feel they're being complicated if you know them, or just have like a sit down conversation with a stranger about how that could be very problematic and these could be why, and kind of understand everyone's perspective to get like that common understanding and that common ground, and have people kind of think about things a little bit more before saying them. So I'm going to end the video here. I hope you guys have a good rest of the week, and I will see you guys next Wednesday. Peace.